So what do terraforming Mars and crafting a compelling world within your narrative have in common? The most important part in each is undoubtedly establishing the proper atmosphere. Life won't survive for too long if you use helium in place of oxygen, and likewise your story can suffer if you make the audience feel like nothing exists outside what's currently displayed on this two-dimensional box on their screen. In addition, if the atmosphere establishes the wrong tone, your work may not hit the right emotional beats, or it could feel disjointed. You can see where I'm going with this. I am happily not the first person singing the praises of Girls' Last Tour, because there's good reason to. There's just something that's so special about how it chooses to tell its story. I implore you, if you haven't given this series a chance yet, do. And if you're unconvinced, well, hopefully by the end of this video, I'll get you to see why you should consider adding some more starch to your diet. I've been wondering for a while now how exactly I wanted to tackle Girls' Last Tour. There's really no shortage of things I would love to discuss, analyze, or just casually talk about. From the incredible soundtrack to the philosophical and existential conversations to the dynamic duo themselves, Cheeto and Yuri. Okay, you know what? For the rest of this video, I'm just gonna refer to them by their nicknames Chi and Yu. Is that okay? Because yeah, the child in me isn't gonna be able to avoid making jokes. Anyway, my point is there's a lot of things that I love about Girls' Last Tour, and there's a lot of things that it does right, but ultimately all of that ties back to the overall atmosphere the show sets for itself. A large part of which comes from likely the most noticeable thing about Girls' Last Tour, the stark difference in art style when it comes to the background versus our titular duo. Their mushy potato faces are contrasted with the static, industrial megacity they're traversing. It calls to mind a similar aesthetic that was used to great effect by a fan-favorite show from last season, Made in Abyss. But while they may be similar, these contrasting art styles are used to convey wildly different ideas within the respective series. In Made in Abyss, I think it's primarily used to show a loss of innocence. We see characters that look like they belong on Nick Jr. go through hell, setting up early on that the Abyss and author alike don't give a shit if they're merely children. That means absolutely nothing in this world, and they will suffer all the same. It's a very effective way of building a palpable sense of dread and tension. Now let's look at Girls' Last Tour. As I said, the aesthetic is just as pronounced, yet in this case, I think it's used much more to preserve and reinforce that idea of innocence. For one, Chi and Yu are far more likely to break from their character models and deform. They're more flexible is another way to look at it, and furthermore, these deformations almost never occur as a result of the environment exerting some kind of pressure on them, a notable contrast to Made in Abyss. More often than not, actually, they melt in response to something they themselves did in an attempt to counteract that outside pressure, suggesting that they are really the ones in control. And it's because this is actually the only life they've ever known. There's specifically a line in episode 5 that I want to call your attention to. After the rain stops, Yu asks Chi if the world has always been this way, and Chi simply responds with, yeah. Which brings up an interesting point we need to consider when discussing Girls' Last Tour. The fact that these scenarios are not at all unusual for them. There was no pre-apocalypse life for our duo to reflect back on or reminisce about. For them, rain pinging off cans and helmets is comparable to music because they haven't heard proper music before. The first time they do is several episodes after this vignette. And it's not just that this is the only life they know, it's also that for a majority of the series, they're blissfully unaware of any better life existing. And so they don't really long for such a life outside of just general musings of their imagination. This is part of the reason why their everyday moe-ness doesn't feel out of place or jarring within this overly bleak world. Because to them, it isn't overly bleak, it's just life. An aspect that's reinforced by their voices and personalities. Because said traits are far more reflective of their surroundings than their aforementioned designs. It's evidence that their environment and upbringing have had some impact on them. Chi, especially between the two of them, is very subdued when speaking and rarely deviates from said tone. It may not seem like much, but this is something that I think, if it had been done incorrectly, could have sunk the series from the start. Had Chi and Yu been cast using the stereotypical cute girls doing cute things starter kit with voices, squeals, reactions, and whatnot included, then I don't think I personally would have made it past the first episode. The contrast would have just been too great and completely destroyed any kind of tangible atmosphere White Fox was trying to craft. Their personalities and how they match their world to a T sell us on its existence. They convince us as a viewing audience that there is some measurable influence this world is exerting on the characters within it, and that despite their inability to change this world in any meaningful way, there still exists this dynamic relationship between them within the story. It makes this barren cityscape of a setting feel weirdly alive in a sense.
Wishes Mike and the Judah. Wishes Mike and the Doji. These are yet.
Of course though, it'd be impossible to fully explore the atmosphere Girls Last Tour sets without mentioning its use of music and sound in general. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I am no expert in the field of analyzing media. I'm working on it, but music especially is not my strong suit. I'm bad with technical terms and whatnot, so I just want you to realize that. I do know though what music is capable of, its ability to sell a scene or shot and bypass a lot of your active mind to get to your very core. Music, I think, can have a powerful emotional presence in a way that nothing else quite matches. But I never really think about the music of a scene consciously. Rather, I'm more just aware of the effect it's having on me and how I view a scene. And in the case of Girls Last Tour, I thought that throughout the series, White Fox consistently nailed the music, sounds, and choices of when to omit both. The music especially serves to reinforce the aforementioned idea that not everything in this world is as bleak as we see it. There are times when it's pretty upbeat and really evokes a sense of discovery and curiosity, like when she and you are searching through the snow-covered battlefield in episode 1. That said, the setting is also used to a certain effect here, as when the music shifts in tone to something more ominous or serious, as it does toward the end of this first episode, it doesn't feel out of place. Because there is music meant to complement or reflect the actions of our duo, which tends to be that more upbeat or cheerful style, but there also is music that is set more to the tone of the world beyond them, which is understandably more mysterious and hollow. And because Chi and Yu blend so seamlessly with their setting, so too does either choice of music. It's another example of that existing dynamic relationship at work. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there is a lot I could have chosen to praise Girls Last Tour for. I absolutely love the subtle world building they throw in and the casual philosophical conversations of the two that occasionally wander into the realm of relativistic physics. On top of that, there is a great sense of continuity for something that could essentially be considered an episodic series. For example, upon rewatching some of the earlier episodes, namely the first one, I noticed a few small details, one of which doesn't actually come back into play until episode 9. Above it all though, its bleak but beautiful atmosphere and the moments of each that it helped create are what I think I'll end up remembering most about Girls Last Tour. It has some great lessons for any of us trying to make a setting seem tangible and its characters feel like they're a part of it. If you haven't yet, I once again highly recommend checking out this series. That is just my analysis though, and as always I want to hear from you, the audience. What are your thoughts on Girls Last Tour provided you've seen it? Were you expecting it to have maybe a darker edge like Made in Abyss? Who is best potato? Whatever your thoughts are, you can let me know down below. Thank you as always for watching, and also thank you for your patience with this one, the holidays have been crazy. But an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, PenguinPandaZero, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, James Morton, and everybody else for generously supporting me. And if you would like to support me, you can click the right to visit my Patreon page, you can click the left to subscribe, in the middle to watch more of my content, feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, stay awesome, and I'll see you guys next time.